welcome to another edition of Coffee and Beats. I am your musical barista, Rod the Magnificent, and I'm here for another episode. This is a little mini episode that I'm going to be doing today, a classic review. And this month, we focus on classic albums. Many music critics do that. They backtrack since it's usually a slow month when it comes to the music industry. But before I get into my classic review, hit that like button, hit the subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and please comment on this video. I want to get your thoughts and opinions on a lot of these albums that I'm recommending, so please do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button and comment below. I truly appreciate that. That'll boost me up in the algorithm, and I really appreciate all the support for Coffee and Beats. I don't have any coffee that I'm going to recommend on this particular episode because this is a much shorter episode, but I wanted to bring attention to an album that usually gets overlooked in this particular artist or band's discography. And that band that I'm talking about is none other than Portishead. Now, Portishead came out in 1994 with their debut album, Dummy. Dummy is definitely one of those marquee trademark albums that holds dear to my heart. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. Dummy was the album that introduced me to this group. I would say later on in my life, I wasn't quite into Portishead when they were hot. I kind of was late to the party on them, but here I am, and been a big fan ever since the mid 2000s. It's been roughly around 16 years since they dropped a project together, but Beth Gibbons has made her runs and featuring on different hip-hop albums. One album in particular that she had made an appearance on was Kendrick Lamar's Big Steppers album a year ago. Definitely had one of the most emotional tracks off that album. And now here we are, we still have no sign of Portishead, but here I am
Rock the Beardnificent,
your coffee, your music barista, hitting you with an album in their discography that I think gets ignored a lot, and I think it is a classic just as much as Dummy. And that album is none other than their self-titled second studio release, Portishead. Now, this album features around 11 songs, clocking in at around 50 minutes, and they basically were labeled as trip hop artists after their debut album, Dummy. But Beth Gibbons and the rest of the crew, Jeff Barrow and Adrian Utley, basically viewed Dummy as labeling them inside of a box, and that box is the trip hop box. Trip hop, for those who might not know, combines a lot of electronic music to combine with a lot of hip hop elements into their production. And if you notice on Dummy, not only there are a lot of sad, slow, down tempo tracks on that album, but along with that you hear a lot of mixing and scratching from Jeff Barrow, who's a multi-instrumentalist and producer. Adrian Utley is on the guitar with the band, and his strings on that Dummy album are amazing. I feel like with this particular project right here, they kind of stick to their roots, but they go down a more darker path in Portishead than they did on Dummy. This album features so many dark, luscious tunes, kind of puts you in the mind of some old Alfred Hitchcock films. You can see some of the songs that could be possibly played, like some of the instrumentals on here can be possibly played in a movie like Psycho. I feel like Beth Gibbons' vocals on this particular project is better than Dummy. I feel like she really challenged herself vocally on this album. Especially, you start to see her hit those high notes. For example, on the song Half Day Closing, she's hitting those pipes with each and every time the chorus drops. She's going deeper and deeper and deeper, and once we get to the end of the song, you just see her holding that note so long.
Where you get those vocals from? Wow, We didn't know you could do all that.
She really supplied us with the heat vocally in regards that tune. The album opens up with the opening track Cowboys, which basically sets the tone for the rest of the album. And then you got All Mine, such a glamorous tune. It makes me think of one of those old cologne commercials from the 90s. The cinematography is all in black and white, and you see a couple dressed up. They're probably at a ballroom and they're drinking champagne. It just gives you that type of vibe when you're listening to the track. Undenied is a very heartbreaking song about losing a loved one. You can hear the emotion, you can hear the drive. The production on this track feels like you're looking outside and it's just raining and everything is moving in slow motion. Then you got Over with the hard thumping drums. You see most of the production taking over with this track. This also reintroduces a lot of the mixing and scratching that was done on Dummy. Portishead taps into those trip hop roots again. This is the first time you kind of see them going back to what they did with Dummy. Up next, you got the track Humming, another scary beat that you have, and you have those haunting vocals from Beth. You see the separation that they're trying to push for in comparison to what they dropped with Dummy. The song 7 Months, you see a very commanding Gibbons on this particular track. I mean, she is really scary on this one. I mean, she comes in like,
How can I?
She has your attention here. I feel like Beth didn't want to waste any time. She wanted to stand out over the instrumental production of this album, which she did. She did this very well. She executed this perfectly. The track Only You, which is definitely one of my favorite tracks off the album, it's got a nice slow boom bap beat to it. Again, they're revisiting the trip hop here. You got some good, nice, subtle mixing and scratching on this particular track. I think this was like the second single off this particular album and was a good follow-up single to All Mine. Elysium has a very distorted beat. It's almost sounding like you're trying to fix the antenna to a TV to get the right station, or to the radio. You're trying to fix the antenna to the radio to get the right station. If you're listening to AM frequency, here she again gives you those very haunting vocals to go along with a very dark beat. Last but not least, you have Western Eyes, which I thought was a perfect closer to this album. You talk about dark, you talk about the pianos, the violins. You almost feel like someone is creeping behind you. Feels like an old Alfred Hitchcock episode type of opening. You kind of see her towards the end of this album allowing the music to take over the track to open up, and then she comes in with her smooth delivery, her very peaceful and passionate vocals, and of course the change up, the beat change up. How can I not talk about Western Eyes and not talk about this beat change up, this beat switch up? It's amazing. Jeff Burrow with the, I don't know what song that he got this sample from, but he was able to mix and scratch the sample perfectly into the track. I mean, just mind blowing. Chef's kiss. I mean, this was an excellent way to close out what I think is a classic album, and I think you should check it out. Self-titled, Portishead. I think you'll like it just as much as I did. And that will do it for this side episode of Coffee and Beats. I am your musical barista, Rod the Magnificent. I'll be back with another classic review next week. I'm going to try to keep on spewing these out before the music season gets started, but hope you enjoyed this small episode. If you know an artist who has a discography and maybe it's an album in their discography that you think needs to get a little bit more flowers, then let me know in the comments section. Maybe I'll talk about it. I am your musical barista, Rod the Magnificent. When it comes to coffee, when it comes to music, stay grounded for life. I will see you on the next one. Peace.